I am unsure if I should divorce my husband. I've been with my now husband for 6 years. We got married about 9 months ago. Ever since we got married, he has gotten progressively more verbally abusive. Sometimes things change when you get married. It has gotten to the point where I have started to look up divorce papers and I'm searching for new places to live, but cannot decide if I should follow through. Well, if you were together for 6 years and the last 9 months have been bad, what's changed? Has someone got a new job? Was there an inheritance? Was there an identity change? That happens with jobs, new friends, new surroundings, new environments, new neighborhood. What's changed? Is it just being married or is there something you're missing here? It started out as small bickering about random things that started to hurt his feelings that never did before, but it was occasional and easily resolved. Then he started escalating and making very pointed attacks with his own words and would go on yelling and cursing like that until I cried. So there was no evidence of this kind of behavior or verbal abuse in the first 6 years. I'm going to guess that you didn't anticipate this as part of being in the marriage. I thought he loved our wedding day. He never once complained. And when I asked him if he felt left out of the planning or anything, he always says no, that he loved our day. Sounds like he's using this as a bargaining chip for when he wants something. In other words, I did this for you. It was a great day. I got married. And now that we're married, I expect this. So maybe you want to get really clear on what the expectations are now that you're married that are different from those first 6 years. Fast forward a few months later, we had a huge fight that got to the point where I wouldn't talk to him for a week and slept in another room. He just keeps picking small issues that were never a problem for the entire 6 years, exploding and twisting them out of proportion, yelling at me, then blaming me for the reason he yells rather than taking accountability for his weird anger that started a few weeks after our wedding day. It's gotten to the point where I cry, he will roll his eyes and get even angrier. Now he's the bad guy and I'm playing the victim, but I'm not. My confidence is crushed and I'm genuinely hurt by his awful words, and he is killing my soul. Those were strong words. It could be that now that he's married and he's in this thing, there's no next tier. Sometimes people get to marriage and they're like, what's next? Long story short, I told him I cannot take another singular fight. We had been fighting at a level 7 out of 10, at least 2 days per week for multiple months at this point. I told him firmly, if we fight again, I'm going to need a divorce because I cannot handle the emotional toll. You got to get to the bottom of what are the fights about? Are they pettiness? Are they specifically about snoring? What are the fights about? It's not that you're just fighting. It's what is it over? He eventually apologized and begged me to please sleep in the same bed at night and stop going to the guest bedroom. He offered to pay for marriage counseling. Okay, well, there you go. Meeting you halfway on the bridge, and asked me to stop looking at apartments and divorce papers. Here's my advice on marriage counseling. Interview 3 or 4 people and pick the one that you both agree on. If you go to the first one and just assume that they're going to be good for you and you don't have a good connection or a good feeling about them, then it can go bad really quick. And you want to get someone that you feel a good connection towards. So make sure that you are selective when you look for this marriage counselor. Things were okay the next few weeks. He never ended up looking for a marriage counselor. So just to correct you, he said he offered to pay for marriage counseling. He didn't say he offered to look for it. But he stopped having these sudden intense overreactions. So I thought maybe he was doing some internal reflection or started to realize how he was affecting me. That was until this morning when we woke up to get brunch at our favorite spot. The weather was great. The sunroof was open and our wedding song came on. I smiled and looked over at him, held his hand and said something along the lines of, and started to sing it. I noticed he had this bland stare and was not all engaged, didn't even smile. I asked what was wrong and he told me he was annoyed that I was driving so slow behind the old person and asked why I wasn't going around them. That hurt. It felt like a total gut punch. I'm wondering, this is a possibility. Sometimes when men get married, it can be anticlimactic. In other words, now that the marriage is over, he's been looking forward to this for so long. Now he's looking at till death do us part for the rest of his life with the same woman. Now that might be upsetting to you, but that might be his reality. He can get through that and it might just be a phase. But that's one guess that I have. I pulled my hand away and just got quiet and started to move around the old guy. And then he started to raise his voice again. Great. Now what? What did I do wrong now? So right there, that's a narrative he has in his head that he can't get anything right. This is very common with men married or not married, but in long-term relationships. I can't get credit for doing anything right. Everything I do is wrong. I just kind of said in a low voice that he didn't do anything and just forget about it. His immediate response was to start yelling, "What are you effing mad at me for?" not having the reaction you want. Now you're going to make this a whole thing again, aren't you? And blame me for ruining your wedding song. I tried saying I wasn't expecting any response from him in particular, but I also wasn't expecting him to talk about how slow I'm driving while I'm singing our wedding song and holding his hand. The screaming got so bad, I turned around and went home. I've been hiding in the guest bedroom ever since and crying so hard I have a terrible migraine. What's upsetting me most is that I came from an abusive upbringing, worked with a therapist for multiple years to ensure I broke that cycle. I was single for a long time before meeting my husband and did this whole self-love journey with the help of my therapist. When my husband and I met for the first time, I stayed friends with him for a year and a half before ever even dating him. We then dated, lived together for 3 years before even talking about marriage. We did get engaged. I prolonged our engagement for 2 years to make sure the cycle would be forever broken and that I made the right choice. I wasted my best years and spent so much time being so careful with who I let in close to my heart just for this to happen less than a year into the marriage. Do you already have a narrative in your head that this is over, that he's become a verbally abusive person? And maybe it's true, but you're so far gone out of it. I don't know where you're willing to meet him halfway. You definitely need to get a marriage counselor. Well, to be honest with you, it sounds like you're extremely triggered by him raising his voice. And I would just wonder, did you guys live together full time before getting married? Because if you didn't live together full time, this might be the big difference. Also, the idea that you had issues when you were young, something's triggered you to get more dramatic about the situation. Not saying you're not right about that and your feelings, but you've gone 0 to 100 on how bad he is as a person and how bad of a match, and you wasted time and it'll never work out. These are extreme viewpoints. The space I cherished so much and created for myself in my apartment before ever meeting him. At this point, I don't care about the symbolism of marriage because he broke his vows month into it while I upheld my end and just keep crying myself to sleep at night. This can't be the rest of my life. This can't. I won't allow it to be. I didn't do all this work to be treated this way. Do you feel entitled in this marriage that you should get more because you had a raw deal when you were young? And what that tells me is whatever's going on with him right now is getting amplified by your history. I'm also scared about what I would tell my friends and family if I did this. My father and grandmother paid for 90% of the wedding because my husband's family is more financially restricted. Our friend's family gave us a lot of honeymoon money, and I'm worried they would be livid. I think you should make an attempt to see a marriage counselor and therapist because he has a side of the story too. You've been together 6 years. That says something about you two. And if you really needed to get a divorce and things have changed and he's being extremely verbally abusive and extremely rigid in his ways, well, then it doesn't matter about your grandparents or your friends or your family. Yeah, maybe they'll be upset for a month or 2 months about you leaving. They should be interested with you being happy and living a life feeling good about yourself. I hope that helps you. Go to writemac.com if you want to book a session.